When someone says they've got a VW GTI, your mind will probably leap straight away to the Golf GTI, the original, the legend, the one that started the whole GTI thing off. But for years now, Up GTI notwithstanding, there's been another car with a GTI badge on it lurking in VW's range, but people haven't really latched onto it in the same way. That car is the Polo GTI.
The latest generation Polo strays somewhat from the smaller than a Golf roots of the last car. It's still smaller than said Golf, but it's pretty massive. And it's full of grown-up tech like proper touchscreens and jazzy digital touchboards and other proper car stuff.
At risk of this turning into a sensible consumer review, the Polo, in this generation at least, appears to have grown up, like properly. It's huge and it's sensible, and well, it's no longer, you know, the kind of not quite so grown up hatch for people that want something sensible but aren't quite sensible, because that was always the Golf. But now this is kind of filling that space as well as the Golf, just at a lower price point. And nowadays, the not quite so sensible small car for people who want a sensible small car but don't admit that they're sensible, well, that's the Up. But anyway, there is, of course, in the new Polo lineup, a new GTI, and that GTI has 197 brake horsepower. VW reckons that means it'll get from 0 to 62 in 6.7 seconds and up to 147 miles an hour. And if you're into your MPG, this thing will, on the combined cycle, allegedly, crank out 47.9 miles per gallon, which is actually quite impressive.
Now that's interesting because that's the same power as the Mark V Golf GTI, the Golf GTI iPhone 4 moment, the one where everything came together nicely and set a stable platform for the next generation. It's not a small amount of grunt, but it's not massive either. It was enough to make the Golf feel properly quick, and it should do the same for the Polo. Thing is, I'm here to find out why the Polo's been so sidelined in the past. It's always been a decent car, but why not celebrate it? Past Polos have shared platforms with Ibiza Cupras, Fabia VRSs and even an Audi S1, sort of. They've gone toe-to-toe with Fiesta STs. Why haven't they been more widely celebrated?
Is it simply the case that the Golf is the bigger, more important brother, and that the Polo simply has never been able to match up to it because, well, the Golf is the Golf, frankly? But if you think about it in Ford terms, nowadays, more people lose their minds over the Fiesta ST than they do the Focus ST. And if they're going to go crazy over a Focus, it'll likely be the RS. In reality, yes, it does have to keep pace with the Golf GTI. And then there's another problem, because while the GTI is up above, the Up GTI is down below, snapping at its heels. So really it's sandwiched in this big GTI witch, and it's really got to stand out against two cars that people get genuinely excited about. It's a problem of VW's own making, because, well, there's lots of trims and lots of ways to say GTI. And on top of that, there's all its competitors from outside as well.
The problem with the sector the little Polo is in is that there's so much choice. Suzuki Swifts, Audis, Seats, Fords, you name it. What makes a Polo stand out against a standard range might not be enough to make it stand out against its peers. Fact is, the Polo GTIs of old have been good but not great, lacking that X factor that the likes of the Fiesta ST has in spades. So what I'm hoping is that this new Polo GTI, with its tricky lecky diff, stiffer springs, tougher anti-roll bars and twist beam axle at the back, will be a match, at least in part, for Ford.
Having spent a fair few miles with it and a fair few hours bimbling around the countryside playing with the various settings and buttons, it is objectively a really good bit of kit. It's fast, it makes really good noises, it makes kind of a burbly noise and it pops and bangs and crackles, and every time you shift up with your paddles it does that Volkswagen Audi group fart thing, that vroom, vroom, which is super cool. It's like something you get on an Audi RS car. I like that a lot. So in theory, it does the right thing speed-wise, it makes the right noises, so let's break it down a little bit. Let's go into the nitty-gritty. The steering, even in sport mode, isn't very heavy, and it doesn't feel like there's much substance to it. The throttle response, if you throw everything into sport, well, that's pretty decent. It picks up really nicely, and the pedal has great feel to it. You can manipulate it with, well, just a toe, but you get so much fine articulation in there. That's proper smart thinking. They could have just made it a blunt instrument, but they didn't. But here's the rub. It does everything right. But I haven't been carving up corners and accelerating off the line and giggling like a child, as is my want. I like doing that. It's just been going through the motions. I don't feel myself thinking, oh, you know what, I'll take the long way home. I think, actually, this will get me home a lot faster than a smaller engined Polo. Objectively, the Polo GTI does absolutely everything right. It makes a good noise, it is very fast, and it'll get round corners quickly. But in doing all of that, it loses some of that excitement, some of that hot hatch joie de vivre. Basically, it is a good car, but it's just not a very exciting one.